All right. Fancy seeing you again, guys and friends, here in the YouTube channel. All right, so here we go. It's been a while since we uploaded a review video here, and it has been a really long time since we have made a Bible review video. And so here we are. With what we have here is the English ESV, English Standard Version, hardback, white margin edition. Alright? This video is actually long overdue because we received this beautiful Bible from Miss Amanda Taylor of Cambridge Publishing last, let me check the presentation page, last September 23, 2022. We had a major construction repairs here, so doing this video was next to impossible. The construction repair here lasted actually for more than a month. Okay, so before we proceed, don't forget to hit the like button, comment, and subscribe to this channel so that you will receive any future notifications. Also, don't forget to click that notification bell. Okay, so again, this is Christopher Niño Arca from the City of God Ministry, and you are watching our Bible review program. And of course, I hope you will support our ministry so that we can further on our evangelization mission. Details on how to support the ministry will be posted down at the description box, and we will also be posting the link where you can get this hardback eagle down at the description box as well. So, my first impression of this Bible, the material of this cover is actually, if you could see that, it's very smooth. Holy Bible ESV printed on the cover, very simple. I like that. And there's an indentation in the spine. Sorry about that. Well, you can see at the spine that it's just simple. No spine hubs. Alright, we have the Cambridge White Margin Edition ESV Holy Bible. And we have one ribbon marker. Okay, it is a little over 3 inches in excess. We have tailbands, headbands, that's black and yellow, and as you can see, there are signatures. This is definitely a Smithsonian binding, and this Bible actually comes with this lengthwise slipcase. Cambridge ESV White Margin Reference Edition. Hello, let's wait for it to focus. Alright, and then here are the details. You could pause this video so you could read the details. And here is the ISBN number. Alright, the price is not mentioned here, but let me show it to you how much it actually costs. Alright, so based on this catalog, this ESV hardback costs £50. Alright, so as we open this Bible, you will see that this is a paper paste down liner, and I believe this Bible is built to last. Alright, so this Bible measures in length 9.1 inches to 7.4 inches wide, and the thickness, if we take a look at it, that would be 1.3 inches. For me, the thickness is just right. It's not very thick. Now, we will be making this review quite differently, and so I will skip some of the details. What got me interested with this Bible is because of this. Alright? And this pamphlet was published by Pastor Matthew Everhart This is a shout out also, Pastor Matt. You got me hooked into this, and I believe this is fun. This booklet of Pastor Matt, also done by Cambridge Bibles, is about writing notes on your Bible. I don't usually write on my Bibles, but because I can see how passionately and energetic Pastor Matt here is in writing in his Bibles, and seeing how creative he was. All right, so this really got me interested. But for the sake of my fellow Filipinos here in the Philippines, who might not have any idea about this Bible, I guess I would have to do a complete presentation of this Bible. Alright, so I filled this presentation page last September when I got this from Miss Amanda Taylor. I received this September 23, 2022. And if you check the copyright page, let me open the Bible for the copyright page. The text used here is the 2007 edition. And this is actually printed and bound in the Netherlands. The typeset 7.9 point on the 8.2 lexicon number 1. Alright. Now, so what does this mean? So this means we will be doing a random analysis of the verses here with the Hebrew and the text, with the Hebrew and the Greek texts. Alright, so we have the table of contents, and we also have the preface. Now let me put it down for you and to read part of the preface for you. Now I'll be pointing out here, the ESV is an essentially literal translation that seeks as far as possible to capture the precise wording of the original text meaning the Hebrew and the Greek, and the personal style of each Bible writer. As such, its emphasis is on word for word correspondence, at the same time taking into account differences of grammar, syntax, and idiom, alright, between current literary English and the original languages. Thus, it seeks to be transparent to the original text, meaning being consistent with the original biblical language, letting the reader see as directly as possible the structure and meaning of the original, based on the original language. Alright, so moving along, we will be going to the text itself. Alright, Genesis. As you can see, there are no book introductions. Right, this is a 2-column format. Okay, translator notes on the bottom right part, and we have references, center column references. Again, as you can see, the verse numbers are small. I hope Cambridge print the verse numbers either bigger or bolder to mark the distinction clearly. And as you can see, Cambridge is quite generous with their margin spaces at the top, at the bottom, outer and inner margin. Now, to do the measurement here, the margins, the outer margin is 1.5 inches, the bottom is 1.3 inches. The inner margin is 1 inch, and the upper margin is also an inch. As you can see, all the books doesn't have their own book introduction. They don't have their own book introduction. Page numbers are aligned with the inner margin, page content on the outer margin. And what I like about this Bible is that there is no sheen. You can read even under the light. I like that. Now let me zoom the page for you. Alright, so these two columns measure actually, alright, one column measures 51 centimeters and the center column is 18 centimeters wide. Each column 51 centimeters wide, and the middle is 18 centimeters. Now I have here my calf split. Alright, I have my calf split diadem, also the ESV, and let me show you the difference in their font size. I don't know that if you could clearly see it. The font size of the diadem is bigger than that of the wide margin. And if you could see it as well, there is a distinction that the letters, the fonts here, are darker than the one in the wide margin. And what I find surprising here is that actually, even though there are some differences with the wide margin and the diadem, the page layout is actually the same. At the start of the Bible, you could see that they have the same pagination, but continuously as you go to the New Testament, I saw it earlier, there are no page breaks here in the wide margin. I mean, the page numbers continue with the New Testament. Unlike here with the diadem, there's a page break with the New Testament because there is the apocryphal books in between the Old and the New Testament. And let me show you, let me zoom, that the paper is actually thick enough for you to write on the pages here of the white margin. Now it will depend on how hard you write. My writing style is that I put a lot of pressure, and I'll show to you later how I tested this Bible with my handwriting. Now if we take a look at the poetic layout here in the book of Psalms, it is very, on my end here, the poetic settings is very clean and very appealing to the eyes. You can obviously, it is perfectly line, you can see obviously that this is perfectly line matched. Alright, and there is a minimal see-through or ghosting. So as you write your own notes all throughout this Bible, this can be a custom job study Bible for you. What do I mean? You can collect your ideas as you study the texts, write down your notes as you study through, as you read through. This could be a perfect study Bible with your own notes. Alright, so moving on to the New Testament. Alright, you will see here that the words of Christ are not in red. Alright, for you guys who doesn't like the words of Christ in red, this Bible is for you, because the words of Christ are printed in black, and every reference that they do to the Old Testament, they are printed separately, like here. Let me show that to you. Out of the mouth of infants and nursing babies, you have prepared praise. Alright, so right after the book of Revelation, we still have other tools as well, like the table of weights and measures. We have a very detailed concordance. I like that about the ESV. They have a very detailed concordance. Everything is here. What do I mean? The concordance is 87 pages thick. Get that? The concordance here in the ESV white margin is 87 pages. And after the concordance, we have blank pages. Let me show that to you first. We have blank pages after the concordance, index to notes. This blank pages with no lines is 13 pages. And after that we have notebook style. Alright, blank pages where you can write your notes because there are lines there. That's a sample of my handwriting. My writing here. And lastly, let me show to you the maps. Cambridge Bible Maps. So we have the list of the maps here. We have 15 maps, map index, and then the maps itself. Now, it's not printed on a glossy paper. It's a cardstock. And the way the map was printed is really like an almanac. Very detailed. I like that. Sorry about that. Not almanac, but atlas. Alright, so here comes the meaty part. Moving along, we will be checking on some verses now and match them up, well, with my Septuagint, Tanakh, and the Greek New Testament. Alright, but first, let me check about Mark 16. Well, I can definitely see that there is a Mark 16 here, the longer ending of Mark, although there is a what? An identifier, alright? Meaning some of the earlier manuscripts do not include this part. This is 16 verse 9 to 20. Some Bibles don't have this note anymore, but with this white margin, we still have it. But it's good that we have the content of the longer version. Alright, so I chose Luke 1 verse 28, where it says here in the ESV, and he came to her and said, "Greetings, O favored one, the Lord is with you." And now, if we take a look here, this is Luke 1 verse 28. It says, and having approached toward her, he said, "Hail." He said, "Hail." Having been favored, the Lord, that's the Lord with you. Now, to check it out, definitely this is a match with the Greek, and it's a word for word translation. Okay, that means it sounds like a transliteration. Now let's go to Matthew 6. I also chose Matthew 6 verses 9 to 13. Okay, so we'll read first here in the ESV. Pray then like this: Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we also have forgiven our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Now let's check it out with the Greek New Testament. Now this is from the Greek New Testament. This is Matthew 6 verses 9 to 13. And we read that this is the Our Father in the ESV. Now let's read it from the Greek. You would hear how I would translate it. Okay, so therefore, thus pray you, Father of us, the one in the heavens, let be revered the name of you. Verse 10. Let come the kingdom of you, let be done the will of you, as in heaven, also on earth. Verse 11. Verse 11. The bread of us daily give to us today. Verse 12. And forgive us the debts of us, as also we have forgiven the debtors of us. And lastly, verse 13. And do not bring us into temptation, but rescue us from the evil one. Now, if you ask me, in this chosen verse, all right, it sounded more of a interpretation, a translation, a thought for thought, not with the exact, not an exact match, not a 100% match in wordings. Alright, so I'm also choosing here Gospel according to John, chapter 1, verses 1 to 5. Alright, if we could read it from the ESV, verses 1 to 5, it says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, and the Word, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Verse 2, He was in the beginning with God. Verse 3, all things were made through Him, and without Him was not anything made that was made. Verse 4, in Him was life, and the life was the light of men. Lastly, verse 5, the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. Now let's check the Greek New Testament. Alright, so I'm laying this open in the Gospel according to John. Chapter 1, verse 1. Verse 1, it says, in beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and God was the Word, and God was the Word. Verse 2, this one was in beginning with God. Verse 3, all things through Him came to be, and without Him came to be not one thing that which came into being. Verse 4, in Him was life, and the life was the light of men. And lastly, verse 5, and the light in the darkness shines, and the darkness did not grasp it. Now, definitely the ESV sounded like in the Greek New Testament, so it's a definitely word for word match. Alright, and lastly, we'll be taking through the letter of Paul to the Romans. We will just be taking one verse. This is Romans 13, verse 1. Now it reads here in the ESV, let every person be subject, alright, let every person be subject to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except from God, and those that exist have been instituted by God. That's verse 1. Now let's check out the Greek. Alright, so I just turned the page. Romans 13, verse 1. Alright, so just listen how I would render it. Every person, authorities to superiors. let be subject, not for there is authority except by God, and the existing ones by God have been appointed. Now it seems to me that there's a sound off, so definitely it would be a definite word for word in between the Greek New Testament and the ESV here with Romans as well. Now let's check out the Old Testament. I chose 2 Kings chapter 1 verse 1. Here in the ESV it reads, after the death of Ahab, Moab rebelled against Israel. Now let's see if it's this, where does it incline, with the Hebrew or with the Greek Septuagint. Alright, so let me get my Septuagint and my Tanakh. Now this is my Septuagint, so this is 2 Kings. Now we are reading chapter 1 verse 1, 2 Kings 1:1. Alright, just follow through as I read 2 Kings chapter 1 verse 1. And it came to pass after Saul was dead that David returned from smiting Amalek, and David abode 2 days in Ziklag. Now, this definitely doesn't sound the 2 Kings chapter 1 verse 1 in the ESV. Now, let me check my Tanakh. Now this is my Tanakh. Okay, so we are here in 2 Kings chapter 1 verse 1, where it says, okay, so just try to understand how I would render it. After Ahab's death, alright, this is after Ahab's death, Moab rebelled against Israel. Now as you can see here, definitely that text, that verse sticks with the Masoretic. It's a formal word for word with the Tanakh. And lastly, we will be going to the book of Psalms, which is my favorite, chapter 61 verse 1. Here it is. My apologies, it's chapter 63 verse 1, where it reads, O God, you are my God, earnestly I seek you. Right? O God, you are my God, earnestly I seek you. My soul thirsts for you, my flesh faints for you, as in a dry and weary land where there is no water. That's verse 1. Now let's go to see where it leans on. Rather, would it be with the Septuagint, the Greek, or with the Tanakh, with the Hebrew? Alright, so this is Psalms 63 verse 1. Alright, Psalm 63 verse 1. O God, my God, I cry to thee early. My soul has thirst for thee. How often has my soul longed after thee in a barren and trackless land, and barren and trackless and dry land. Now, with the Septuagint, it does not really sound off like to be exact. Now let's try to look into the Tanakh. Now here you would see that the verse number is quite different. Alright, It is in verse 2. Okay, so try to this is verse 2, this is verse 3 now. All right, so please just listen on how I would render it. God, you are my God. I search for you. My soul thirsts for you. My body yearns for you, as a parched and thirsty land that has no water. Alright, so what do you think? Now, it sounds that it's definitely clear that the verse here is closer to the Tanakh than the Greek Septuagint. And it leans on to the word-for-word translation as well. So based on these random verses, that although ESV would really be formal, essentially literal in its translation, this text edition anyway, the translators seem to be leaning on roughing up the edges, making it clear to read and yet maintain the word-for-word translation. Alright, so here in the Old Testament, definitely the influence is Masoretic. Alright, that it's definitely Masoretic. So last point to show. So if last point to show, I will show you my handwriting. I wrote here in the Bible already. So I made a mark here in Psalm 63. There, I made that cross mark. And if we could see at the other side of it, there's a pressure, but the see-through is not much, but definitely there's a pressure because I write very hard. Alright, and let's take a look at the notes at the back. Yes, I wrote there as well. See, definitely there's like an engraving because my handwriting is very hard. But nonetheless, there is no show through. That's Psalm 63.